Coming up on this Friday edition of Daybreak, speculation grows about North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's health as he was absent from his customary seat as the country convened its rubber stamp parliament. Kim hasn't been seen in public in nearly a month. France and the United States strike more Islamic State targets in Iraq and Syria as Britain announces it will join the US-led coalition to fight the militants. Plus, at the Incheon Asian Games, South Korea sets its first 2 world records at this year's Games, but 2 of the nation's best-known athletes fall short in their quest for gold. Daybreak begins now. Hello, and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Friday, September 26th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome, and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, top party and government officials in North Korea's Supreme People's Assembly met on Thursday for the second time this year. North Korea's young leader, Kim Jong-un, however, was not present. The last time Kim appeared in public, which was some 3 weeks ago, he was seen limping then, and this is fueling wild rumors about his health. Shin Se-min starts us off.
It was a no-show for the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un at the 13th Supreme People's Assembly held on Thursday, and the absence is fueling speculations about his health. The young leader Kim, who has not been seen in public since September 3rd, missed a meeting for the first time since he took power in 2011. Several weeks of absence has stirred up questions about Kim's possible health problems, as he has been seen walking with a limp in recent news reports released by the state media. North Korea, however, replaced its Vice Chairman Choi Ryong-hae of the National Defense Commission to Hwang Byung-seo, the director of the all-powerful General Political Bureau of Pyongyang's Korean People's Army. Choi, once a key confidant of North Korean leader, succeeding Kim's uncle Chang Song-taek, has been dismissed from his seat. The day-long meeting has brought together some 650 delegates to approve some of the key public policy and legal measures, along with overhauling the country's mandatory schooling and conscription systems. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, more than a month has passed since Seoul proposed holding high-level talks with Pyongyang over pending inter-Korean issues. This offer remains on the table, but the North has yet to give an answer. Wanting to try and get the ball rolling, Seoul's unification minister renewed the offer on Thursday. Our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
Speaking at a forum in Seoul on Thursday, South Korea's top policymaker for inter-Korean affairs had a message for North Korea.
In order to solve pending issues, South and North Korea must put their heads together, see each other, and talk. Our government is willing to discuss all issues brought to the table.
North Korea has been sitting on a South Korean offer for high-level talks made last month, saying Seoul must first stop civic activists from flying anti-Pyongyang leaflets before any meetings can take place. Unification Minister Ryu Gil-jae also noted the importance of international cooperation in preparing for reunification. He said more economic projects like the Najin-Hassan Railway project with the 2 Koreas and Russia are under consideration.
We think a 5-way project involving the 2 Koreas, China, Russia, and Japan is also possible.
Touching upon President Park Geun-hye's speech at the United Nations, Ryu also promised efforts to improve the dire human rights situation in North Korea and to expand humanitarian aid. But with no concrete progress made in inter-Korean relations so far, some are calling Ryu's plans unrealistic. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, while the UN General Assembly continues in New York, members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN as they're more commonly known, are meeting this week in Korea's western port city of Incheon to do their part in peacekeeping cooperation in this region. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The three-day ASEAN Defense Ministers Plus meeting enters its last day on Friday, with ministers and defense representatives from 18 nations across the Asia-Pacific taking part. They have come to enhance cooperation in United Nations peacekeeping efforts around the globe.
Our goal here is to kind of show other fellow Asian countries about what we've been doing and what we have accomplished in the past, and also to learn from them as well. I mean, there are countries with, say, Indonesia, the US, and other countries who have expertise in this field.
This is one of 6 ASEAN defense conferences this year. Each one has a specific focus, with this week's being on peacekeeping. To get a better understanding of Korea's peacekeeping strategies, the group visited Korea's International Peace Corps on Thursday.
And the purpose was, from our side, to come and provide an update on the current trends, challenges, and priorities in UN peacekeeping operations around the world. We were also willing to provide a few updates on current challenges in our field missions.
Korea is known for its defense capabilities among ASEAN member nations. Since 1993, Korea has been an active participant in UN peacekeeping operations around the globe. Over that time, a total of 17 countries and over 12,000 troops have been deployed to different corners of the world, including Iraq and Somalia. On Friday, a defense representative from each country will discuss ways to increase cooperation by sharing strategic information to enhance peacekeeping operations on foreign soil. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Now, the top diplomats of Korea and Japan are going to meet in New York within the next hour or so on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Myung-se and his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida are expected to discuss long-standing historical and territorial differences and the security situation on the Korean Peninsula. The two last met on the sidelines of the ASEAN Regional Forum back in August. These talks come after Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sent a written request to hold summit talks with President Park Geun-hye. Korea will likely reiterate that Japan must show sincerity over Tokyo's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women before talks can take place. An expert from the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights is to make the first official visit to South Korea next Monday to evaluate the situation of racism and discrimination in the country. United Nations Special Rapporteur Mutoma Rutiere says he plans to learn more about the efforts undertaken by the Korean government to combat racism and other forms of discrimination. Now, he's going to be here for a week, and the expert is scheduled to meet with the country's representatives of the legislative and judicial branches, UN agencies, the National Human Rights Commission of Korea, as well as a broad range of civil servants. The human rights expert will hold a press conference at the end of his visit to present his preliminary findings and recommendations, and then a final report on his visit will be presented to the UN Human Rights Council next year.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, they're two of the biggest companies in the entire country. So Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor, as far as how their business is going, so does the Korean stock market, the Kospi. And with the two companies in recent months turning in rather poor performances in a number of different areas, the local bourse has taken rather a big hit. Our Connie Kim reports.
Poor performances from Korea's top two companies are reshaping the country's stock market. The share movement of Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor used to dictate the trend of the Korean bourse, but their influence has diminished recently, with many other companies moving in the other direction. Samsung and Hyundai peaked at a combined 25% of overall market capitalization in June, but the dramatic drops in their share prices in recent months have knocked their combined share value down to less than 16%. Roughly $60 billion have been wiped off the valuation of the two companies in the past year. In contrast, companies specializing in communications, textiles, apparel, banking, and other financial sectors have seen their prices go up by more than 20% in less than 3 months. This is partly because the Korean government began injecting $25 billion into the economy to spur domestic spending and accelerate a recovery. The poor performances from Samsung and Hyundai are being blamed on the strengthened Korean currency and other structural problems.
In the case of Samsung, the smartphone market worldwide has reached its saturation point, leading to a decrease in exports of Samsung handsets. Hyundai's recent purchase of land in Seoul for $10 billion has spurred worries of the company's cash flows.
Many component makers in the auto and electronics industries have seen their shares drop by more than 10% over the past 3 months. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, despite having the funds to live a little, households in Korea preferred to tuck their money away in the bank for a rainy day during the April to June period. Data by the Bank of Korea shows the financial surplus held by households and non-profit organizations swelled by more than $4 billion in the second quarter to $28.3 billion. This is the fourth straight quarter of increase. Now, this essentially means an extra few $1 billion were held back for later use rather than being spent on different things over the course of those months. The central bank says sluggish domestic consumption was the main reason for the disappointing growth rate in the second quarter. It edged up a mere 0.5% on quarter, the lowest growth in nearly 2 years. Korea's individual debt to GDP ratio has come in at the highest in Asia. According to insurance group Alliance Global Wealth report, Korea's ratio stood at 93% last year, when the average of the 53 countries surveyed stood at around 65%. So, huge difference there. The Alliance report warned of household debt defaults, starting with low-income people, the working class, for countries like Korea and Malaysia, especially if interest rates go up or if economic growth slows. Now, it's fair to say it's been a difficult few days for Apple. When the company said the new iPhone would change the shape of smartphones, consumers didn't actually expect their new phones to actually bend. Apple's customers have complained that the devices bending rather after having them in their pockets. They found that the larger iPhone 6 Plus was the most prone to this curving. Others were furious to find that their new iPhones were not working after an operating system upgrade. This is the software that runs these handsets. Analysts say the bending issue has become inherent with these newer mobile devices as companies race to put out sleeker and more lightweight designs. On the software issue, Apple has said it was sorry for the inconvenience and that they are working around the clock to try and fix this problem. Nothing official yet about the bending issue, although some IT experts say users should exercise a little common sense when using it and avoid putting such an expensive piece of hardware in their back pockets. Now, the face of the average Korean is going to look much different by the year 2100. That's according to the Korea Face Institute, which conducted a computer simulation based on photographs of some 20,000 Koreans. By the year 2100, the Institute says the average Korean male will have thicker eyebrows and a wider forehead, while females will have double eyelids, which is actually one of the most popularly performed cosmetic surgeries on Korean women these days. Now, one of the main reasons behind the changes was attributed to the steady inflow of foreigners coming into Korea, particularly from Southeast Asia, as more multicultural families are formed. Okay, well, let's take a look at the international headlines we're following on this final day of the work week. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at our news center for us. Good morning, Eunice.
And hello to you, Mark. The U.S.-led coalition against the Islamic State is galvanizing even more support from world nations after the UN Security Council had unanimously adopted a resolution on counterterrorism yesterday. Much of the support came from European nations who said they would back the Iraqi government's official call for help. The UK's British Prime Minister David Cameron describing the cruelty of the IS fighters as medieval at the United Nations, promised he would push for Great Britain to join coalition airstrikes in Iraq. His parliament is set to vote on the matter later today. Belgium and the Netherlands committed to send F-16 jets to coalition efforts in Iraq on Wednesday, while Germany promised to arm Iraq's Kurdish Peshmerga forces with weapons like rocket launchers and machine guns. Meanwhile, the beheading of a French tourist by Islamic radicalists in Algeria appears to have only toughened Paris's resolve against the extremists. French fighter jets launched a second day of airstrikes against IS targets in Iraq, striking 4 hangars near the city of Fallujah. And the leaders of the UK and Iran met on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York, marking the first such high-level contact since the Islamic Revolution back in 1979. Prime Minister David Cameron and President Hassan Rouhani exchanged their views on the fight against Islamic State extremists. One Rouhani deputy hailed the meeting as one that laid the groundwork for fundamental changes in Iran's relationship with the EU. The Iranian leader, under pressure for his country's nuclear program, expressed criticism of the U.S.-led campaign in Iraq and Syria, saying bombing and airstrikes only feed terrorism. He also suggested a readiness to work with Washington as long as the U.S. could move beyond, quote, insignificant fears that his country seeks nuclear arms. Speaking at a high-level UN meeting on the Ebola crisis, U.S. President Barack Obama called the world's response to the outbreak too little and too slow. Speaking of his country's plans, to build a network of treatment centers in Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone, he said he needed other countries to commit doctors. He also called for air transportation, medical evacuation services, and equipment. This as Sierra Leone, one of the hardest-hit West African states, sealed off another district in a desperate move to contain the epidemic, effectively placing some 1/3 of its populace under quarantine. And Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko, who did not attend the UN General Assembly, said his government is preparing a broad plan to apply for EU membership by the year 2020. He said the plan would include development strategies as well as social and economic reforms. The move would follow the former Soviet Republic's landmark agreement for closer ties with the EU ratified last Tuesday. Poroshenko also said a ceasefire struck with pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine earlier this month appears to be holding.
And TGI Friday, everyone, as we continue on with our 2014 Incheon Asian Games coverage, starting off with the men's vault final, where South Korea's Yang Ak-sun faced off against North Korea's Lee Se-kwang for the gold medal. But in a shocking twist of event, Yang Ak-sun, who went with the Lopez instead of the Yang 2 in the second attempt, finished with a final average score of 15.200, while Hong Kong's Shek Wai-hung surprises everyone with a 15.216 average, beating the Olympic champion for the gold medal. Meanwhile, North Korea's Lee Se-kwang failed to make the podium as he finished fourth with a final average score of 14.799. And now moving over to the men's 100-meter freestyle swing event as Park Tae-hwan went after his first gold medal in Incheon. Now, despite a slow start in the first 50-meter of the event, Park Tae-hwan would storm back in the final lap and finish second with a final time of 48.75 seconds, giving him the silver medal. Silver medal finish gives him his 19th Asian Games medal, tying the Korean record. Meanwhile, China's Ling Ze-tao finished first with an Asian record of 47.70 seconds, giving him the gold medal finish. Now, Thursday was a great day for South Korea as a couple of world records were broken on the day, and one of those records were broken in the women's team compound archery event. Now, facing off against Laos, the South Korean women's compound team, which consists of Seok Ji-yeon, Choi Bo-min, and Kim Yoon-hee, scored a combined 238 points out of a possible 240 points to shatter the previous world record of 236, which was set by the U.S. team back in 2011. Meanwhile, the team went on to beat Iran in the semifinal later on the day to advance to the final. Now, another world record was shattered on Thursday, this time over in the women's double trap event when 34-year-old Kim Mi-jin set a new world record en route to her gold medal finish. With the women's double trap event being recognized for the first time by the International Shooting Sports Federation during the Incheon Asian Games, South Korea's Kim Mi-jin scores 110 points to set a new world record, giving her the gold medal. The world record score edged out China's Zhang Weifei, who scored 108 points, and Bai Yai-ting, who finished with the bronze medal with 107 points. And now shifting over to rowing, Kim Ye-ji added South Korea's second ever gold medal in rowing on Wednesday, but let's make that number 3 for Korea after Chi Yoo-jin added another gold medal on Thursday. Chi Yoo-jin, competing in the women's lightweight single sculls event, finishes first with a final time of 8 minutes 1 second, edging out Hong Kong's Lee Kai-man by 5.6 seconds. The first gold medal in rowing for Korea came in 2006 during the Doha Asian Games when Shin Eun-chul claimed men's single scull gold. Now, quite a busy day on Thursday with North Korea's Kim Eun-ju breaking the clean and jerk world record in the women's 75-kilogram weightlifting competition, adding to their impressive gold medal run in the sport. So let's now finish off by taking a look at how the medal standings look so far. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. It seems like another glorious weather is in store today across the nation. Clear blue skies will be featured along with a few patches of clouds. So fall breeze continues in the air, but the top temperatures could be a bit lower than yesterday, hovering in the mid-20s, but it's still perfect weather conditions for any outings. And here are the readings for today. The daytime high in Seoul and Daegu will be rising to 26, and Gwangju will top out at 28, while Busan make it to 25 this afternoon. Now, for other regions, it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon should see highs of 24 and 25 respectively. Dokdo peaks at 21, while Mount Keungang tops out at 14 under lots of sunshine. And weather in Incheon, the host city of Asian Games, is shaping up to be a nice one as well, with highs peaking to 24 later in the day. And the weather should remain pleasant through the weekend, but be aware of temperature difference between lows and highs and dress accordingly to avoid getting a cold. Now that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's going to do it from us for now. Korea Today is coming up at the top of the hour. Have a great day, fabulous weekend, and thanks ever so much for watching. Goodbye.